sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for your results. 5, 10, 15 minutes pass by, and you hear a knock at the door. Your heart startles and starts pounding. Your doctor walks in the room and greets you solemnly. Just from his facial expressions and steady movements, you can tell that the news is not going to be something you want to hear. He finally starts talking, but all you hear is, "I'm sorry, you have cancer." Your heart sinks and you can't think anymore. You feel numb and in shock, but most of all, hopeless. Schizophrenia is known as cancer to the brain. According to Janison's Pharmaceutics, 2.2 million U.S. Americans have schizophrenia. It is also almost near to impossible to get rid of. And schizophrenia makes it almost impossible for the person to tell the difference between what is real and not real. It affects not only the person who has schizophrenia, but all the people around. The symptoms can be traumatic and life-threatening. Most don't realize they have schizophrenia until, well, they don't develop the symptoms until they hit earlier or later ages, like 20, and then rarely do they ever realize that they actually have the disease, even after years of help from the doctor. Most deny the illness, and the symptoms get worse over time. My friend's father has schizophrenia, and she didn't notice that he had like symptoms or he was different until she hit about the age of 12. And the symptoms that she noticed were that he was more nervous, and he was super jumpy, but most of all, he was very paranoid. As the illness gets worse, most of the time they hallucinate and hear voices, sometimes they become catatonic, and even attempt suicide. When a person becomes catatonic, they are non-responsive to the outside world. Sometimes they just sit in a chair with a blank stare. A baby could cry and they wouldn't even flinch. The major symptom is paranoia, and they could walk down the street, see a little kid, and automatically think that the little kid is out to get them or going to stab them just walking past them. So in some cases, a person can lock themselves in the room and not let anybody in, even if it's their son. And sometimes they result to turning off all the lights and looking out the window constantly to see if anybody is out there to attack them. Another common action for the schizophrenics is when they collect newspaper articles and they put them all over the walls, and there's not even an inch of the wall not covered, because they somehow think that whatever's in that newspaper article is proof for what they believe is out to get them. It's like a conspiracy from the government or zombies attacking. Even the symptoms that each patient displays can majorly affect those around them, mentally and physically. It can affect family members physically, because if the schizophrenic thinks that somebody's going to harm them, they automatically go into self-defense mode, and they can push, hurt, or stab whatever they have around them to protect them. And their motive is not to harm the people around them, it's just to keep them safe and not have to worry about anything else. The mental strain on loved ones, it comes when they become catatonic, and when they, in some cases, for example, in the movie Beautiful Minds, there's a part in the movie where John Nash, which is what the movie is on, John Nash is the Nobel Prize winner who had schizophrenia, and at one point in his life, he was catatonic, and his wife, or he had a kid that he was supposed to be taking care of, and he was downstairs while his wife was at work. He sat down there, and for the entire day, his child was crying up in the room. The wife got home and was screaming at him, saying, what's wrong with you? Why can't you go take care of your kid? Didn't even flinch, just a blank stare, no movement whatsoever. So the catatonic stage is a major effect on marriage. And then there's also, he also stopped taking his medicine at one point and eventually came over or recognized all the hallucinations that he had were hallucinations, and his paranoia was from the schizophrenia. And he is one of the few men who overcame schizophrenia by ignoring all of his symptoms, and that's how he got the Nobel Prize, because by ignoring all of his symptoms, he was able to succeed in life. And it's extremely not recommended because schizophrenia is rare to overcome. Another way it affects the family is, in my friend's case, one day she came home from school and she opened the door to her house and there's blood everywhere. She had no idea. She was worried about her brothers, her mom's, her dad's life, and she called her brother crying. And her brother told her that her dad, who has schizophrenia, took all the pills in the medicine cabinet and started to cut himself. And when her brother found out, he called the cops, and as soon as the cops came, he went outside to talk to them, but the dad locked all the doors and didn't let them inside because he thought they were out to get him. And eventually they got him out and took him to the hospital and everything was fine. But the mental strain that it can cause for her, like, she will always remember that day because it was very traumatic. And in this video, this is John Nash, Russell Crowe. He just got to the psych ward and he thinks that they are all conspiracy people who are trying to kill him and everything. So that's just the base of it. And oh, the guy in the corner that you'll see later, he is his best friend from school, who is also not real.
Charles? Prodigal roommate revealed. Saw my name on the lecture slate. You lied, son of a bitch!
Who are you talking to? Tell me who you see.
I didn't say Charles Herman in Russian.
No one there, John.
He's right there. He's right there. Stop.
I don't know anything. Stop. I don't know anything. My name's John Nash. I'm being held against my will. Somebody call the Department of Defense. My name's John Nash. I'm being held against my will.
So he thought that, the Russians were trying to get him, and his best friend, who was a hallucination, was out, or turned him in, and it turns out that it was all just like trying to help him. Schizophrenia is the worst mental illness a person can have. There's no cure, and all they can do is take medicine or overcome their symptoms. Like in John Nash's case, he ignored his hallucinations. The hallucinations and paranoia is always going to be there. They just have to learn to recognize it. He is the only successful man to go off of medicine and overcome all of his symptoms. And this is why it is compared to cancer, because it is the terminal illness free.